So, Michael, let's talk about these fan websites. This is pretty exciting because I think there's a whole bunch of stuff we can get at a fan website that I probably would never see at the record company's websites. What are some of the things I might see?
You're going to get sound clips of band songs. You're going to get QuickTime movies. Some fan sites are rather elaborate in that they're put up by pretty decent computer programmers. So sometimes you'll actually get a screensaver. Lenny Kravitz has a fan site done by a guy at MIT where you can download a screensaver for Windows that has sort of an animated, Lenny video clip, dreadlocks waving about, and that's the only place on the internet you can get a Lenny screensaver. Smashing Pumpkins have screensavers, guitar tabs if you're a musician. A lot of times you can get past interviews with bands, say, reprinted from various magazines or newspapers. You can hook up with user groups. If you go on American Online, for instance, there are a lot of fan sites where you can actually chat. You can go into a chat room, say there's a Smashing Pumpkins discussion going on.
Notes on,
you can
what you
compare
thought
notes.
of the last
I really
album
love this song. Oh, I hated that song. Are you upset that they kicked the drummer out of the band? Things like that fans like to discuss. They'll stay up all night talking on the phone, but here they can talk to somebody in Japan or in Hawaii if they want to about these things.
Let's talk about some websites that you like in particular. What are some of the sites that you think are more compelling than others?
Some of the more compelling sites are some of the larger bands right now. Is where you tend to find more traffic. Like Smashing Pumpkins have a lot of fan sites. They tend to be pretty elaborate. Grateful Dead has tons of fan sites. It's sort of become a virtual parking lot, like since the Dead isn't on tour anymore, people are swapping bootlegs of concerts.
So now they're finding community through the internet instead of in the parking lot,
Exactly. So they're able to trade tapes back and forth. They're able to trade sound clips.
Now, a lot of that was cooking, too, I think. They were cooking meals.
You can get recipes for vegetarian burritos.
You can get recipes
for their brownies. And, I mean, you can find pretty much anything on the Grateful Dead sites. A lot of newer bands, like Future Sounds of London, are pretty active in the internet. They're sort of an ambient band. They actually use the internet. They had one album that came out called ISDN. The two guys in the band collaborated on the recording of the record via the internet over ISDN, so they were actually swapping things back and forth.
So that's more the band itself, but for the fans, or the
fans were able to connect into it. So the fans
at the same time. So the fans
were able to stay up to date, and the fans were swapping back and forth information. Oh, did you see they were using this type of synthesizer? I mean,
so you must be a pretty big music aficionado to be getting into that level as well.
Well, I think there are a lot of people out there. I mean, fan magazines, fan clubs have always been popular throughout sort of rock and roll. I mean, ever since like the 50s. So this is sort of a new market where fan sites can actually compete with the major labels. Some of these sites look just as good as the major label sites. Some of these sites have more assets. I mean, people are devoting a lot more time to the fan sites.
It was the 9 Inch Nails site I think we were talking about earlier. That just blew me away. I mean, that was very slick, very professional looking.
It's very slick. I mean, a few record companies, Virgin EMI are spending a lot of time on their websites. Most record companies are, but most don't have the resources to put in the amount of time that these fan sites do. I mean, you have fans from all over the country contributing things to these sites. Totally committed. And, they might have a staff, if you think of it, like of 100 people contributing to their website on a monthly basis. And most major companies don't have a staff that big. Maybe they have 2 or 3 people taking information from their press department.
So it's nowhere near as dynamic as it would be at the fan website because they're constantly making additions and changes to it.
Exactly.
The one thing that I had a question about was I think at the fan websites, we have bootleg copies of videos of concerts. We've got bootleg copies of music itself. What about copyright infringement? I mean, I would think that there's a big threat here with this whole issue of having the complete song sitting at somebody's website.
Sure, it's an open issue right now legally. I mean, some websites are debating whether or not to apply for a BMI or ASCAP license. Those are both two services that provide music performance right licenses. And so a lot of fan sites are kind of skittish right now about sort of testing the waters legally. They haven't really been that defined.
Nobody's caught them yet, or
well,
shut them down?
Some have. Some websites. There was a website supposedly for the Specials that shut itself down because they were getting some flack about having older archived sort of bootlegs of some of the early, the early Specials, AKA. Assets up on the site, and the new Specials didn't really know if they wanted to be associated with that, and I think they were a little bit worried about whether or not they wanted to test the waters. A lot of record companies are going ahead, they're getting the BMI. Some of the more commercial sites like iMusic have BMI licenses, and the fan sites, by and large, I think are
kind of
waiting.
Walking the edge.
They're walking the edge until things are more legally defined. Right now, there's nothing set in the books that say that this is copyright infringement. It's basically accepted that if they're selling advertising on their site, or if it's a commercial venture where they're using the music to try to make money, then it's obviously copyright infringement. But these fan sites, they're not selling advertising, they're just tossing up the clips.
And they're just having a great time.
Yeah, I mean,
they're sharing information and passing it around to each other.
Exactly. I mean, they're scavengers. They're going all over the net, they're finding whatever assets they can, and they're presenting it to the fans. They're not going to get involved in the legality of it.
I was very impressed with a lot of these sites. They're very compelling, and finding out information about these musicians that I probably never had. They really are artists when you start to look at the fan sites. Thanks a lot for your time.
Sure.
It was really interesting.
Thank you.